Hey, what's up gamers? Today we're diving into the world of some unpopular and underappreciated gems for gaming history. Now we all have those games that critics love to trash or that just slipped under the radar, but somehow they stick with us. Whether it's the story, the atmosphere or the sheer fun we had with them, these games carved out a special place in our memories. In today's video, I'm going to share some games that didn't get the love they deserved, at least from the critics or sales numbers, but were unforgettable to me. As always, drop your favorite guilty pleasure games in the comments and let's get started. Now let's kick it off with The Great Escape, a game released in 2002 based on the classic 1963 war film. Yeah, I know, it wasn't exactly a hit. The Metacritic score of 55 might clue you in. Critics bashed its outdated graphics, ridiculous AI and clunky controls, and trust me, the bugs were everywhere. Soldiers would literally glitch through walls in the middle of a chase. But you know what? None of that stopped me from absolutely loving this game. I remember being totally immersed in this universe. The plot is classic. You're escaping from a Nazi POW camp, trying to outwit the guards and craft your own survival story. Sure, the AI was dumb, but that made outsmarting them feel even more satisfying. It felt personal, like I was living my own World War II adventure. I just couldn't put the controller down until I broke out of that camp. Bugs and all, The Great Escape will always have a spot in my heart. The next game is Gorky XIII. Now, here's a game that didn't exactly flop, but it wasn't widely known either. Released in 1999, it didn't have great sales and it never got the spotlight it deserved. Critics had a lot to say about the game's dated graphics and awkward controls, but for me it was an incredible experience. Let me know if you ever heard of this game, I'm really curious about that. Set in a post-apocalyptic world where you face mutated creatures and uncover dark secrets, Gorky XIII grabbed me right from the start. The turn-based combat was complex, forcing me to really think through each move, but what truly hooked me was the atmosphere, so eerie and dark. It kept me on the edge the whole time. The puzzles made me think, really, and as strange as it seems, I loved every minute of it. It's one of those games that if you love strategy and atmosphere, you'll fall in love with too. Even, I agree, it didn't age very well. Now let's talk about 13, a first-person shooter from 2003 based on the Belgian comic series. This game really marked my childhood. With a Metacritic score of 74, it's clear the game wasn't completely trashed, but it did get some criticism for some bad mechanics and underwhelming multiplayer. But I have to say, I loved this game. I mean, just look at the visuals, cel-shaded graphics that make you feel like you're playing inside a comic book, and even today it still looks good. The gameplay was pure fun for me. Those slow motion kill cams never get old. And the story, pure espionage thriller goodness, uncovering the conspiracy as the amnesiac protagonist, known only as 13, had me hooked. It was like stepping into a spy movie for real. Sure, it wasn't perfect, but this game had style and creativity that still holds up today. The recent remake is not as good as the original in my opinion, by the way. Okay, so next one, Need for Speed Payback. I know, a Metacritic score of 61 and the whole microtransactions drama didn't exactly win it any love from the gaming community. Critics slammed it for its pay-to-win mechanics and repetitive gameplay, and it's totally justified. Released in 2017, for me, this game hit all the right notes. The graphics were stunning, the cars were pure A candy, and I loved personalizing my Golf GTI. I know the critics tore into the repetitive mission structure, but I couldn't put the controller down until I completed the cinematic missions, which felt like playing out a Fast and Furious movie. In the end, I just had fun, and isn't that what really matters? Don't judge me for this one. Driver 3, a game that probably gave me as much rage as joy. Yeah, really. Released in 2004, this one's notorious. A Metacritic score of 56, a chaotic development cycle, and let's not forget all the Drivergate stuff, which revealed that some reviews were influenced by early access privileges. Yeah, sad story for the gaming world. The critics ripped it apart for its buggy gameplay, bad AI and insane difficulty spikes. But despite all that, I was a fan. The story felt like an action-packed movie and I loved the three vastly different open worlds, Miami, Nice and Istanbul. It was one of the first games where I really felt immersed in a cinematic experience, even if the controller sometimes made me want to throw my controller through the window. Let's be honest, Driver 3 had its flaws, but it was also a total blast. Now, if you are a fan of open world games in early 2000s, you might have heard of True Crime Streets of LA. Critics were mixed on this one. Metacritic gave it a 77, but some knocked it for its clunky mechanics and comparison to a cheap GTA. But let me tell you, this game had its own flavor. What I loved was the story and the combat. It felt like a kung fu flick crossed with a buddy cop movie. And for 2003, that massive open world representation of LA, it was really mind-blowing. It wasn't perfect, but it paved the way for games like Sleeping Dogs, which I consider a masterpiece. And let's be real, it was a solid alternative to the GTA series at the time. Next game on the list. Enter The Matrix. Oh boy. Released alongside The Matrix Reloaded, this game had so much potential. But with a Metacritic score of 65, it's clear it didn't live up to the hype. The controls were awkward, the graphics were, well, subpar for the time, and the story didn't always make sense. But you know what? I didn't care. I loved stepping into that universe. The combat was so much fun, especially with the slow motion bullet time mechanics and the atmosphere. Dodging agents and using cool Matrix abilities made me feel like a total badass. Sure, the game's flaws were obvious, but it captures the essence of the Matrix for me. For the next one, I need you to tell me if you ever heard of it. Scratches is one of those rare gems that slipped under most people's radar. Released in 2006, this point-and-click horror game never gained mainstream traction, and the critics were lukewarm on it. Metacritic gave it a 67 with complaints about pacing and some frustrating puzzles. But oh man, if you're a fan of tense horror like I am, Scratches was brilliant. The slow build-up of dread, the creepy mansion, the subtle scares, it was a masterclass in atmosphere. I jumped out of my seat more times than I'd like to admit. It may not be for everyone, but for horror fans, it's a must-play. Just try it. Now, last but not least, a game from 2006, Dreamfall, The Longest Journey. With a Metacritic score of 75, it's not a poorly reviewed game by any means, but I feel it never got the recognition it deserved. The critics appreciated the story, but sometimes complained about the slow pace and simplified combat. For me, Dreamfall was all about the adventure and the characters. I was so attached to the protagonist, and the mystery surrounding the world had me hooked from the start. Exploring these rich, immersive environments felt like a journey, no pun intended, that I didn't want to end. It's one of those rare games where the story sticks with you long after you finish playing. So here we have 9 games that may not have received critical acclaim but hold a special place in my gaming heart. What about you? Let me know in comments. What games did you love that everyone else seemed to hate? And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future gaming content. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy gaming everyone. Bye bye.